If you had the chance to talk to Jesus, there's questions you'd want to ask him. But have you ever thought that there's questions Jesus wants to ask you? And there's answers only you can give. Let's get right to it. Now, before we get to today's question, let me explain a little bit of why we're doing this series by asking you a question. In the biographies of Jesus, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John that we have in our Bible, how many questions do you think Jesus asked? Just right now, just take a guess. Say it out loud. How many questions do you think Jesus asked? The answer? It's 307 questions that Jesus asked people. It's questions for clarification, questions for guidance, questions that challenge them, questions that inspire them. He used questions all of the time. And part of the reason that he did this is because instead of just giving people knowledge, here's the answers and putting it in our heads, he wanted us to take his words and wrestle with them with our entire body, soul, mind, and spirit. This is actually a rabbinical teaching style of asking a question of the person who asks you a question and leading them to discover the answer on their own. Because when Jesus teaches through a question, it leads us to a lifestyle of learning rather than feeling like we have the answer. And it's one thing to leave the questions on the pages of history and the pages of the Bible as historical moments, but it's an entirely different thing to take those questions and ask them of ourselves. What is it that Jesus is asking me in this question? And that's what we're going to do in this series, Questions Jesus Wants to Ask You. I love kicking off our series with today's question because it's a question you can ask regardless of what you think about Jesus. Whether you're sure about who he is, whether you're not sure about who he is, whether you're wherever you are on your faith walk with Jesus, this is a question that you can answer. So one day Jesus is walking past a river and these two guys see him and they're like, oh my goodness, that's Jesus. And they wanted to see if what they heard was true. And so they just started to just follow Jesus. And we don't know how close they got, if they were really close to him or if they followed him at a distance. But eventually Jesus is like, these two guys are following me. He stops, he turns around and he asks them, what are you seeking? What is it you're looking for? It's one thing to leave that question just there in the moment, but it's another thing entirely for you to answer it. Again, this is a question that you can answer regardless of what you think about Jesus. Because whether you're sure about who he is, or you're not sure about who he is, or you're just checking him out, you're following after him. You're looking into him. You want to see if what you've heard is true. You're watching this video after all. There might be a great distance between the two of you, or there might be a short distance. Whatever it is, you're following after Jesus. And as you follow him, what is it you hope to find? Where do you hope he leads you? What do you hope that you will find in him? So today in your discussion groups, you're going to answer that question. You're going to start by reading the account of where this came from that I was just describing to you. Then you're going to do some follow-up discussions, and then you're going to answer that question for yourself. You're going to have a great time. I am so excited for you, and I'm excited for this series. I'm sure you have questions for Jesus, but there are questions Jesus wants to ask you, and there are answers that only you can give. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.